The invitation arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, delivered by courier in a cream-colored envelope with gold embossing. My name was written in elegant calligraphy across the front, Ms. Diana Hartwell. I held it for a moment before opening it, already knowing what was inside. My sister Catherine was hosting her annual charity gala. The Autumn Foundation Benefit, it was called. A night of champagne, silent auctions, and wealthy people congratulating themselves for their generosity. Catherine had been organizing this event for 7 years now, ever since she married Richard Beaumont, a real estate developer with inherited money and political connections. I opened the envelope carefully. The card inside was thick, expensive paper. Gold lettering announced the date, time, and dress code. Black tie optional. At the bottom, in smaller print, benefiting underprivileged youth programs. How noble. There was a handwritten note tucked inside. Catherine's perfect cursive flowing across a matching card. Diana, I do hope you can make it this year. It would mean so much to have family there. The event has grown quite prestigious. Please let me know if you need help with attire. Love, Catherine. I read that line again. Please let me know if you need help with attire. Translation. Please don't embarrass me by showing up in something cheap. I sat down at my small kitchen table, still holding the invitation. My apartment was quiet. A one-bedroom in an older building, nothing fancy, but it was mine. The furniture was second-hand, but comfortable. The walls were bare except for a few framed photos. One of them showed Catherine and me as children, maybe 8 and 10 years old, sitting on our grandmother's porch. We were smiling, holding ice cream cones, wearing matching sundresses our mother had sewn. That was 40 years ago. Before Catherine married money, before she moved into a mansion in the hills, before she started hosting charity galas and speaking with that practiced elegance that erased any trace of where we came from. We grew up in a small house on the edge of town. Our father worked at a factory. Our mother cleaned houses for wealthy families. We didn't have much, but we had enough. Catherine and I shared a bedroom until I was 16. We told each other secrets in the dark, made plans for our futures, promised we'd always stay close. Then Catherine went to college on a scholarship. She was always the smart one, the ambitious one. She studied business, joined the right clubs, met the right people. By the time she graduated, she had completely reinvented herself. New accent, new wardrobe, new friends who didn't know she'd grown up eating government cheese and wearing hand-me-downs. She met Richard at a networking event. He was 20 years older, divorced, looking for a beautiful young wife to complete his image. Catherine was perfect for the role. They married within a year. I was her maid of honor, standing in a borrowed dress while Catherine wore Vera Wang. I stayed in our hometown. I became a teacher at the local elementary school. The pay wasn't great, but I loved the work. I loved my students, loved watching them learn and grow. I never married. There were relationships over the years, but nothing that lasted. I was content with my life, my small apartment, my routine. Catherine and I stayed in touch, sort of. We talked on birthdays and holidays. She'd call me occasionally, asking about my life in that polite, distant way that felt more like obligation than genuine interest. When I'd ask about her life, she'd give carefully edited updates. The foundation is doing well. Richard just closed another deal. We're thinking of buying a vacation home in Aspen. She never asked if I needed money, never offered to help when I mentioned my car breaking down or my apartment's heater dying. She'd say things like, "Oh, that's unfortunate," and then change the subject, as if acknowledging my financial struggles would somehow contaminate her. The last time I'd seen her in person was 3 years ago, at our mother's funeral. Catherine arrived in a black designer suit, her hair professionally styled, her grief measured and appropriate. She stood beside me at the service, but we barely spoke. After the burial, she hugged me briefly and said she had to catch a flight. Richard was waiting in the car. I hadn't been invited to her home. Not once in 15 years of marriage. She'd say things like, "We should get together soon." But it never happened. If we met, it was always at neutral locations. Coffee shops, restaurants, places where she could control the environment, where no one from her new life would see us together. And now, this invitation. The first time in 7 years she'd invited me to her gala. I knew why. Her assistant had probably mentioned that family presence looks good for photos. Or maybe one of her society friends had commented on it. "Where is your sister? Don't you have any family?" So, here it was. The invitation, the olive branch, the chance to be included in Catherine's glittering world. I picked up my phone and typed a message. "Thank you for the invitation. I'll be there." I hit send before I could change my mind. Then I walked to my closet and looked at my clothes. Nothing appropriate for a black tie gala, nothing even close. I had work clothes, casual clothes, a few nice outfits for parent-teacher conferences, but nothing that would fit Catherine's world. I thought about her note. "Please let me know if you need help with attire." No, I wouldn't ask. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of playing fairy godmother to her poor sister. I was going to that gala, but I was going on my terms. I spent the next week thinking about what to wear. Every morning, while drinking coffee, every evening, while grading papers, the questions sat in the back of my mind, like a pebble in my shoe. What do you wear when your wealthy sister has invited you to her charity gala, but clearly hopes you'll decline? On Thursday, I stopped by a thrift store after work. The kind of place I'd shopped at for years, where everything smelled faintly of mothballs and old perfume. I browsed through the formal wear section, running my fingers across polyester gowns in outdated styles. There was a burgundy dress with shoulder pads from the 80s. A sequined number that looked like it belonged in a disco. Nothing that would work. The shop assistant, an older woman with kind eyes, approached me. "Looking for something special?" "A gala," I said. "My sister's hosting a charity event." She smiled. "How wonderful. Let me show you what just came in." She led me to a rack in the back. Designer labels, barely worn, donated by women who wore things once and discarded them. She pulled out a navy blue gown, simple and elegant. The price tag said $85. "This would look lovely on you," she said. It would. It was beautiful, appropriate. Exactly the kind of thing Catherine would approve of. I thanked her, but didn't buy it, because somewhere during that week of thinking, something had shifted inside me. I realized I didn't want to play Catherine's game. I didn't want to pretend to fit into her world. I didn't want to spend money I didn't have on a dress I'd never wear again, just to make her comfortable. I thought about all the years of subtle rejection, the way she'd edited me out of her new life, the way she'd never introduced me to her friends, never invited me to her home, never acknowledged where we came from, as if our childhood was something shameful, something to be hidden. And I thought about that note. "Please let me know if you need help with attire." The condescension in those words, the assumption that I couldn't dress myself, that I needed her guidance, her money, her approval. No. I was going to that gala exactly as I was, not as the sister she wished I was, but as the sister I actually am. On Saturday morning, I went through my closet again, this time with different eyes. I pulled out a pair of khaki pants I'd worn for years, comfortable and practical. A simple cotton blouse, white with a small floral pattern. A cardigan that had seen better days. with a small moth hole near the hem. Flat shoes, scuffed from use. I laid them out on my bed and looked at them for a long time. These were my clothes. My real clothes. The clothes of a woman who worked hard, lived simply, and had nothing to be ashamed of. I tried them on and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked exactly like what I was, a middle-aged elementary school teacher who lived paycheck to paycheck. No glamour, no elegance, no pretense. Perfect. My friend Martha called that afternoon. We'd taught together for 15 years, shared countless lunches in the teacher's lounge, supported each other through difficult parent conferences and exhausting school years. "Are you really going?" she asked when I told her about my plan. "I am." "Diana, I know your sister hurt you, but showing up like that, won't it just make things worse?" "Worse than what?" I asked. "Worse than being ignored for 15 years? Worse than being treated like an embarrassment? Worse than receiving an invitation with instructions on how to dress appropriately?" Martha was quiet for a moment. "What are you hoping will happen?" I thought about that. What was I hoping for? "I want to see her face," I said finally. "I want to see how she reacts when I show up as myself, not as the sister she wants me to be. I want to know if she'll introduce me to her friends or try to hide me in a corner. I want to know if any part of the girl I grew up with is still in there, or if she's completely gone. And if she is gone, then at least I'll know. At least I won't wonder anymore." Martha sighed. "You're braver than I am. Or more stubborn." She laughed. "That too. Call me after, okay? I want to hear everything." The week passed slowly. I taught my classes, graded spelling tests, helped students with math problems. Normal life, comfortable routines. But underneath, I felt something building. Not anger exactly. More like clarity. I thought about my students, 8-year-olds from all kinds of backgrounds. Some came from wealthy families with vacation homes and private tutors. Others came from single-parent households where money was tight. But in my classroom, they were all equal. They all got the same attention, the same care, the same respect. Because that's what you do. You treat people as people, not as their bank accounts. Catherine had forgotten that, or maybe she'd never really believed it. Maybe even as children, she'd been planning her escape, counting the days until she could leave our small house and modest life behind. On Friday night, the night before the gala, I ate dinner alone. Simple pasta with vegetables. I cleaned my apartment, did laundry, prepared my clothes for the next day. Everything calm, methodical, peaceful. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. I set my alarm for 8, even though the gala didn't start until 7 in the evening. I wanted time to think, to be sure, to give myself one last chance to change my mind. But when I woke up Saturday morning, I felt the same clarity I'd felt all week. I was going to Catherine's gala in my oldest clothes, and I was going to watch what happened next. The Beaumont estate sat on 5 acres in the most exclusive neighborhood in the city. I'd looked it up online after receiving the invitation. The property was worth $7 million. It had appeared in architecture magazines, been featured in local society pages, hosted fundraisers for politicians and celebrities. I'd never seen it in person. I drove my 15-year-old Honda Civic up the winding private road, passing luxury cars parked along the sides. Mercedes, BMWs, Tesla. My car made a concerning rattling sound as I climbed the hill. I patted the dashboard affectionately. "Just a little further," I whispered. The house came into view, and I slowed down involuntarily. It was massive. Modern architecture with floor-to-ceiling windows, clean white lines, perfectly manicured landscaping. White tents were set up on the back lawn, visible through the gates. String lights were already glowing in the early evening light. A valet attendant stood at the entrance, wearing a crisp uniform. He was young, probably college age, working this event for extra money. He approached my car with a professional smile that faltered slightly when he saw my vehicle. I rolled down my window. "I'm here for the gala." "Of course, ma'am. May I have your name?" "Diana Hartwell." He checked his tablet, nodded, and opened my door. I handed him my keys, grabbed my small purse, and stepped out. He tried not to stare at my outfit. I could see him taking in the khaki pants, the floral blouse, the worn cardigan. His professional expression never changed, but his eyes told the story. "Enjoy your evening, ma'am," he said, and drove my car away to wherever they were parking the vehicles that didn't match the others. I walked toward the entrance. The front door was open, with another attendant directing guests toward the back. I could hear music, conversation, laughter, the sounds of wealthy people enjoying themselves. I stepped inside. The house was exactly what I expected. High ceilings, modern art on the walls, furniture that probably cost more than my annual salary. Everything white and gray and perfectly coordinated. Not a single personal photo anywhere. Nothing that suggested actual people lived here, that this was a home and not just a showpiece. I followed the flow of guests through the house, past the enormous kitchen where catering staff worked efficiently, through sliding glass doors that opened onto a stone patio, and down steps to the back lawn where the real event was taking place. It was beautiful, I had to admit. The tents were elegant, draped in white fabric with chandeliers hanging from the centers. Round tables surrounded a dance floor. A stage held a small orchestra. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Everything perfect, everything expensive, everything carefully designed to impress, and the guests. They looked exactly like I'd imagined. The women wore designer gowns, jewelry that caught the light, professional hair and makeup. The men wore tuxedos or expensive suits. Everyone looked polished, confident, at ease in this world of wealth and status. I stood at the edge of the patio, looking down at the scene, very aware of how completely I didn't belong. A waiter approached me with a tray of champagne. "Would you care for a drink?" "Thank you," I said, taking a glass. He moved on without a second glance. That was the thing about service staff. They were trained to treat everyone the same, regardless of how they looked. It was the guests who would be different. I descended the steps to the lawn and walked along the perimeter of the event, observing. Groups of people stood together, talking and laughing. I recognized some faces from local news, politicians, and business owners. Everyone seemed to know everyone else. And then I saw Catherine. She stood near the center of it all, wearing a floor-length silver gown that probably cost thousands. Her blonde hair was swept up in an intricate style. Diamond earrings caught the light. She looked stunning, confident, every inch the successful philanthropist and society wife. She was talking to a group of women, all similarly dressed, all laughing at something she'd said. Her posture was perfect, her smile practiced and warm. She looked so comfortable, so completely in her element. I watched her for a moment, this stranger who used to be my sister. Then she turned and saw me. The change in her expression was instant. Her smile froze. Her eyes widened. She scanned my outfit quickly, taking in every detail, and I saw it all flash across her face. Shock, disbelief, horror. She excused herself from her group and walked toward me quickly, her smile returning but tighter now, forced. "Diana," she said, reaching me and kissing my cheek in a gesture that looked affectionate but felt mechanical. "You came. You invited me." "Yes, of course. I'm so glad." Her eyes kept darting to my clothes, then away, as if she couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. "You look comfortable." "Thank you." I thought, when you didn't respond about attire, I thought perhaps you'd found something suitable. "These are suitable," I said calmly. "They're clean, they fit, and they're appropriate for an outdoor evening event." Catherine's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course, I just meant this is a rather formal occasion. Black tie optional," I said. "I chose the optional part." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Well, you certainly did." She glanced back at her group of friends who were watching us with poorly concealed curiosity. "Let me introduce you to some people." But she didn't move. She stood there, clearly torn between her obligation to welcome me and her desire to hide me away somewhere. "Actually," she said, her voice dropping lower, "why don't I give you a tour of the house first? You haven't seen it yet, have you?" "No, I haven't." "Perfect. Come with me." She took my elbow and guided me back toward the house, away from her guests, away from the lights and music and witnesses, and I let her lead me, curious to see what would happen next. Catherine walked quickly, her heels clicking on the stone patio as she led me back inside the house. Her hand was still on my elbow, not gently guiding, but firmly steering. We passed through the sliding glass doors into the quiet, air-conditioned interior. "The house is quite something," she said, her voice bright but brittle. "Richard had it completely redesigned when we bought it. The previous owners had terrible taste. We gutted everything." We walked through the kitchen, which was empty now except for catering staff who nodded politely as we passed. Catherine barely acknowledged them. "This is the kitchen, obviously. Top-of-the-line appliances. We have a chef who comes 3 times a week. It's just easier, with our schedule." I nodded, saying nothing. She led me down a hallway lined with abstract art. "These are from a gallery Richard invests in. Contemporary pieces. They've appreciated quite nicely." She pointed at each one as we passed. "That one's a Rothko. That one's a Hockney print. Richard has excellent taste." "Do you like them?" I asked. She paused, glanced at me. "Of course I like them." "I was just asking. You said Richard has excellent taste, but I was wondering about yours." Her smile tightened. "We share the same taste." We continued down the hallway. She showed me the formal dining room with its table that seated 16. The library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes that looked like they'd never been opened. The sitting room with its white sofas and glass coffee table. Everything was perfect. Everything was expensive. Nothing felt lived in. "How many rooms are there?" I asked. 8 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms. Richard's office is upstairs. My office is in the East Wing. We each need our own workspace." "And you live here alone? Just the 2 of you?" "We have staff, of course. A housekeeper, a gardener. Richard's assistant works here several days a week." "But no children?" Catherine's expression flickered. "No, we decided early on that wasn't the path for us. Our work is too demanding. And honestly, Diana, children are expensive. The lifestyle we've built requires a certain freedom." I thought about my students. 23 children in my class this year, all of them messy and loud and wonderful. I thought about their artwork on my refrigerator, their thank you notes in my desk drawer, their faces lighting up when they understood something new. "Yes," I said quietly. "Children do require sacrifice." Catherine didn't seem to notice the edge in my voice. She was already moving on, leading me up a curved staircase to the 2nd floor. "The master suite is up here. I think you'll be impressed." The master bedroom was enormous. A king-size bed dominated the center, surrounded by matching furniture in muted grays. Another wall of windows overlooked the lawn where the gala continued. Without us, I could see the guests, hear the faint sound of music. Beautiful view, I said. Yes. Richard wanted to be able to see the entire property. She walked to the window, looked down at the party below. Everyone seems to be having a wonderful time. You should get back to them. In a moment, she turned to face me, and for the first time since I arrived, I saw something real in her expression. Something that might have been vulnerability. Diana, why did you come dressed like that? Like what? Like... She gestured at my outfit, frustration finally breaking through her polite facade. Like you just came from running errands. This is a formal event. I invited you because I wanted you to be part of this, to see what I've built, to meet the people in my life. But you show up looking like... She stopped herself. Looking like what? I asked calmly. Looking like a teacher? Looking like someone who works for a living? Looking like your sister? That's not fair, isn't it? I walked closer to her. You sent me an invitation with a note offering to help with my attire. You assumed I couldn't dress myself appropriately. You assumed I'd be an embarrassment unless you intervened. I was trying to be helpful. No, I said. You were trying to control how I appeared? You were trying to make sure I fit into your world, that I didn't remind your friends that you came from the same place I did? Catherine's face flushed. That's not true. When was the last time you invited me to your home, Catherine? Not for a tour during a party, but just to visit, to have dinner, to spend time together. She didn't answer. 15 years, I continued. 15 years of marriage, and this is the first time I've been inside your house. You've kept me away deliberately. You've erased me from your new life because I don't match the image you've created. I've been busy? Too busy for your only sister? Too busy for the person who shared a bedroom with you for 16 years? Who braided your hair before school? Who held your hand at Mom's funeral? Catherine's eyes were shiny with tears she wouldn't let fall. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Richard's business associates, my social circles, the foundation board. Everything matters. Every detail. How I look, how my home looks, who I associate with. One wrong move and the whispers start, the judgment. And I would be a wrong move. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I walked to the window, looked down at her perfect party. You invited me because someone must have mentioned it. Someone probably asked why your family never attends your events. So you sent the invitation, hoping I'd say no. And when I said yes, you hoped I'd show up looking like someone who could blend in, someone who wouldn't raise questions. Catherine wiped her eyes carefully, preserving her makeup. I wanted you here, Diana. I did. You wanted a version of me that doesn't exist. You wanted a sister who drives a luxury car and wears designer clothes and can make small talk about vacation homes and stock portfolios. But that's not who I am. I know who you are. Do you? I turned to face her. When was the last time you asked about my life? Really asked? Not just polite questions, but actually wanting to know? She was quiet. I love my job, I said. I love my students. I love my small apartment. I'm happy, Catherine, genuinely happy. But you've never once asked if I'm happy. You've only worried about whether I'm successful by your standards. That's not fair, she whispered. Maybe not, but it's true. We stood in silence, sisters separated by more than just different tax brackets, different wardrobes, different lives. We should go back down, Catherine said finally, her voice carefully controlled. She'd composed herself, wiped away any trace of tears, rebuilt the perfect face. People will wonder where I am. Of course. We walked downstairs in silence. Catherine was already transforming back into her society persona, her posture straightening, her smile returning. By the time we reached the ground floor, you would never know we'd just had a difficult conversation. But she still hadn't answered my question about whether she'd introduce me to her friends. We stepped back outside onto the patio. The party had grown more animated. More guests had arrived. The champagne was flowing freely. Laughter echoed across the lawn. Catherine paused at the top of the steps, scanning the crowd with the practiced eye of a hostess. She spotted someone and waved, then turned to me. "Just stay here for a moment, okay? I need to greet someone important." She descended the steps before I could respond, leaving me standing alone on the patio. I watched her approach a distinguished older couple, greeting them with kisses and warm words. She gestured toward the main tent, laughing at something the man said. She was charming, gracious, completely in her element. A waiter passed, and I took another glass of champagne, though I'd barely touched my first. I held it as a prop, something to do with my hands. "First time here?" I turned. A woman about my age stood beside me, also holding champagne, also watching the party below. She wore a navy cocktail dress, tasteful jewelry, professionally styled hair. She looked at ease, but not ostentatious. "Yes," I said. "First time?" "It's quite the production, isn't it?" She smiled. "I'm Helen Morrison. Diana Hartwell. Are you a friend of Catherine's?" I hesitated. "I'm her sister." Helen's eyebrows rose. "Her sister?" I didn't know Catherine had a sister. She looked at me more carefully, taking in my outfit with frank curiosity. "She's never mentioned you." "We don't see each other often." "Clearly." Helen sipped her champagne. "I'm on the foundation board with Catherine. Have been for 3 years. She talks about the foundation constantly, about Richard's business, about her various committees and causes. But family? Never." "She's a private person," I said, though we both knew that wasn't quite true. "She's a strategic person," Helen corrected gently. "Everything Catherine does is calculated. This party, for instance, she's been planning it for months, guest list carefully curated. Every detail designed to impress the right people." She paused. "No offense to you, but showing up in khakis wasn't part of her plan." I smiled, despite myself. "No, it wasn't." "Intentional?" "Completely." Helen laughed, a genuine sound that cut through the artificial politeness around us. "I like you. Catherine doesn't know what to do with you, does she?" "Not at all." We stood together, watching Catherine work the crowd below. She moved from group to group, touching arms, laughing, engaging. She was good at this, I had to admit. Good at making people feel seen, at making connections, at being the perfect hostess. "She's been trying to hide you," Helen observed. "You know that, right? The house tour, keeping you up here on the patio. She's hoping you'll somehow become invisible." "I know. So why did you come?" I thought about how to answer that. "Because I needed to see who she's become, and I needed her to see who I still am." Helen nodded slowly. "That's braver than you think. Most people in your position would have either stayed home or tried to fit in. You did neither." "I don't want to fit in. I just wanted to be invited as myself." "Well, you're making quite the statement." Helen gestured with her champagne glass. "People are definitely noticing you. They're wondering who you are, how you're connected to Catherine, why you're dressed so differently." "Let them wonder." "Oh, they will, and they'll ask Catherine about you. That's when things will get really interesting." As if on cue, I saw Catherine glance up at the patio, spot me still standing there with Helen, and her smile faltered slightly. She said something to the couple she was with and started walking back up the steps. "Here we go?" Helen murmured. Catherine approached us, her smile firmly in place. Helen, I see you've met my sister. I have. She's delightful. Why have you been hiding her from us all these years? Catherine's laugh was light, practiced. Diana lives quite far away. We don't get to see each other as often as we'd like. I live 40 minutes away, I said quietly. Helen's eyes sparkled with interest, but she said nothing. Catherine's smile tightened. Well, it feels far with our busy schedules. Diana, come meet some people. I know you must be feeling out of place standing up here alone. Helen's been keeping me company. Still, you should mingle. That's what these events are for. She took my elbow again, that same firm grip from earlier. Excuse us, Helen. Of course. Diana, it was lovely meeting you. You too. Catherine guided me down the steps and into the crowd, but she didn't head toward any of the groups of guests. Instead, she steered me toward the back corner of the tent, where a small table held silent auction items. Framed art, vacation packages, spa treatments, things being auctioned off for charity. You can look at these, Catherine said. Place some bids if you'd like. It's all for a good cause. She was literally trying to hide me behind the auction table, in the corner where the lighting was dimmer, where guests were less likely to linger. Catherine, I need to go check on the catering. There was a question about the timing for dinner. She was already backing away. Just enjoy yourself. I'll find you later. She disappeared into the crowd before I could respond, leaving me standing alone in the corner of her perfect party, exactly where she wanted me. Hidden. I stood in the corner by the silent auction table, holding my untouched champagne, watching wealthy people bid on vacation packages they didn't need. A week in Tuscany went for $8,000. A weekend spa package for $3,000. Someone bid $12,000 on a painting that looked like something my second graders could have done. All for charity, of course. All tax deductible. I picked up the bid sheet for an item titled Dinner with the Mayor. Current bid, $5,000. I wondered what people talked about over a $5,000 dinner. I wondered if they talked about real things or just more networking, more deals, more climbing. Are you going to bid? I turned. A man stood beside me, older, maybe 65, wearing a well-tailored suit, but with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. He looked at the auction sheet in my hand with amusement. No, I said, just looking. Probably wise. I've had dinner with the mayor. He talks about himself the entire time. He extended his hand. Robert Chen. Diana Hartwell. And how do you know our hostess? Here it was again. The question. I could lie, could make something up, could claim to be a business associate or foundation volunteer. Catherine would probably prefer that. I'm her sister. Robert's expression shifted, but not to shock like Helen's. Instead, he looked genuinely pleased. Her sister? I didn't know Catherine had a sister. What a lovely surprise. She doesn't mention me much. Apparently not at all. He studied me openly, taking in my outfit without judgment. You look different from the other guests. I dress differently too. He laughed. Indeed you do, refreshingly so. I'm tired of seeing the same designer labels, the same jewelry, the same carefully constructed appearances. Everyone trying to outwealth each other? He gestured at his own suit. I'm guilty of it myself. Force of habit. What do you do, Mr. Chen? Robert, please. I'm retired now, but I was a physician, pediatric surgeon. Worked 40 years before I finally had the sense to stop. He looked around at the party. Now I go to events like this and donate money to good causes, and try not to be bored by people who think wealth equals wisdom. I liked him immediately. And you? he asked. What do you do, Diana? I teach 3rd grade. Ah. His face lit up. A teacher. One of the most important professions and one of the most underpaid. I'm guessing you don't make in a year what someone here just bid on a spa weekend. You'd be correct. And yet you're probably doing more good in the world than anyone at this party. I'd like to think so. We stood together in comfortable silence, watching the crowd. Catherine was near the stage now, talking with the orchestra leader about something. She glanced toward the corner where she'd left me, checking to make sure I was still hidden away. Robert noticed. She's keeping you away from people. She is. May I ask why you came, dressed as you are, knowing how she'd react? I considered the question. Robert's tone wasn't judgmental, just curious. Because I wanted to see if she'd introduce me as myself or try to hide me. I wanted to see who she's become. And what have you discovered? That the sister I grew up with doesn't exist anymore. Or maybe she never did. Maybe she was always planning to leave our life behind, and I just didn't see it. Robert nodded thoughtfully. Wealth does strange things to people. Some handle it gracefully. Others let it consume them. Your sister seems to have let it define her. Everything she is now is built on money and status. Her friends, her marriage, her identity. Take those away, and I don't know what would be left. Does she know you think that? We had a conversation upstairs. It didn't go well. I imagine not. Robert sipped his champagne. You represent something she's trying to forget. Evidence of a life she's worked hard to erase. Our mother cleaned houses, I said. She worked for families like these people. She scrubbed their toilets and washed their floors and came home exhausted. Catherine and I wore second-hand clothes and shared a bedroom. We weren't poor, but we weren't this. I gestured at the party around us. And now Catherine is this, and she can't reconcile the two versions of herself, so she chooses to pretend only one exists. Exactly. A waiter passed with a tray of appetizers. Robert took one, offered the tray to me. I declined. You should eat something, he said. The food is actually quite good, probably cost a fortune, but it tastes good. I'm not hungry. Nervous? No, just observing. Well observed. He ate his appetizer, then said, I'm going to do something that will probably upset your sister, but I think needs to be done. Will you come with me? Where? To introduce you to people. Real introductions, not Catherine's corner hiding strategy. I want my friends to meet you. Why? Because you're the most interesting person at this party, and because your sister needs to learn that you're not something to be ashamed of. He offered his arm. Shall we? I hesitated. This would mortify Catherine. It would create exactly the scene she'd been trying to avoid. People would talk. They'd ask questions. They'd wonder why Robert Chen, respected retired surgeon and generous donor, was escorting the oddly dressed sister around the party. I took his arm. Let's go. We walked away from the corner, away from the auction table, into the center of the party, where the lights were bright and the guests congregated. People noticed us immediately. I could see their eyes tracking our progress, registering my presence, trying to figure out who I was. Robert walked confidently, unbothered by the attention. We approached a group of 3 couples standing near the dance floor. George, Linda, everyone, Robert said warmly. I want you to meet someone special. This is Diana Hartwell, Catherine's sister. And just like that, I was no longer hidden. The group Robert had approached greeted me politely, though their eyes lingered on my clothes with poorly concealed curiosity. George, a tall man with silver hair, recovered first. Catherine's sister, he said, shaking my hand. We didn't know she had a sister. How wonderful that you could join us tonight. His wife Linda smiled, but her eyes were doing calculations. Do you live nearby? About 40 minutes away. Oh, not far at all. And what brings you to town? Are you visiting? I've lived here my whole life, I said. Same town I grew up in. A pause. They were trying to reconcile this information with Catherine's carefully constructed narrative. If she had a sister who lived 40 minutes away, why had none of them ever met me? Why had Catherine never mentioned me? Diana is a teacher, Robert said. 3rd grade. How lovely, Linda said in that tone people use when they're being polite about professions they don't value. That must be very rewarding. It is. George turned to Robert. Robert, did you see the auction item from your clinic? The private consultation package is up to $7,000. Good cause, Robert said. But I'm more interested in hearing about Diana's work. Tell them about your students, Diana. I saw what he was doing. He was forcing them to engage with me as a person, not just as Catherine's embarrassing secret. I could have declined, could have given vague answers and let the conversation move on. Instead, I decided to play along. I have 23 students this year, I said. Ages 8 and 9. They're reading chapter books now, learning multiplication, starting to write longer stories. It's the age where everything clicks into place, where you can see them becoming real thinkers. That sounds challenging, one of the other women said. I don't know how you manage so many children at once. You learn. You have to be patient, creative, and willing to meet each child where they are. Some of my students come from homes with every advantage. Others come from homes where they're lucky to get 1 meal a day. But in my classroom, they're all equal. They all deserve the same attention and care. I saw a flicker of something in Linda's expression. Recognition, maybe. Or discomfort at the mention of children who didn't have enough to eat. Catherine's foundation does wonderful work with underprivileged youth, George said, steering the conversation to safer territory. Tonight's event will raise significant funds. What does the foundation actually do? I asked. They looked at each other. George cleared his throat. Well, they provide grants to various programs, educational initiatives, after-school activities, that sort of thing. Do you know which programs specifically? Another pause. I'm sure Catherine could provide those details. I'm sure she could, I said. I was just curious. I work with underprivileged students every day. I wondered if any of them had benefited from her foundation's work. Robert smiled slightly. He knew exactly what I was doing. You should ask her, Linda said. I'm sure she'd love to tell you about it. I'll do that. I saw Catherine across the lawn. She'd spotted me with Robert and this group, and her expression was pure panic. She excused herself from her conversation and started walking toward us quickly, her heels clicking on the grass. Diana, she said, arriving slightly breathless. There you are. I've been looking for you. I've been right here. Robert was kind enough to introduce me to his friends. Catherine's smile was rigid. How thoughtful. Robert, thank you for keeping my sister company. It's been my pleasure. Diana is fascinating. I can't believe we haven't met before. Yes, well, Diana lives quite independently. She's very private. I live 40 minutes away, I corrected. Not exactly remote. Catherine's eyes flashed at me. Still, with your teaching schedule and our commitments, it's hard to coordinate. 15 years is a long time not to coordinate, Robert said mildly. The group was watching this exchange with undisguised interest now. This was better than the auction, better than the speeches and performances planned for later. This was real drama unfolding. Catherine laughed, high and artificial. You make it sound so dramatic, Robert. Diana and I talk regularly, We're just both very busy. When did we last talk? I asked. Actually talk? Not just text messages on holidays? Diana, our mother's funeral, 3 years ago. You stayed for an hour and left. The silence was thick. Linda looked away uncomfortably. George studied his shoes. Robert watched Catherine with something like pity. This isn't the place, Catherine said in a low voice. Isn't it? You invited me to your home, to this event celebrating your charitable work. I assumed you wanted people to meet your family. You know that's not fair. What's not fair is pretending I don't exist. What's not fair is hiding me in corners and giving house tours to keep me away from your guests. What's not fair is being ashamed of where we came from. Catherine's composure cracked. I am not ashamed. Then why have none of these people met me? Why does Robert, who's apparently on your foundation board, not even know you have a sister? Why did you send me an invitation offering to help with my attire, as if I couldn't dress myself? Because I knew you'd do exactly this, Catherine hissed. I knew you'd show up looking like you just came from the grocery store. I knew you'd embarrass me. There it was, the truth, finally spoken aloud. The group around us was frozen. Several other guests nearby had stopped their conversations to listen. This scene was becoming public, spreading across the party like ripples in water. I'm not the one who should be embarrassed, I said quietly. I'm honest about who I am. Can you say the same? Catherine's face flushed red. You don't understand anything about my life, about the pressures I face, about what it takes to maintain an image, a face, a beautiful lie, a reputation, standing, success. Built on denying your own family. Built on hard work and strategic decisions and making the right connections. And marrying a man with money? Catherine's hand twitched as if she wanted to slap me. Instead, she took a deep breath, rebuilt her composure brick by brick, and smiled at the watching guests. I apologize for this scene. My sister has always been dramatic. Your sister, I said, has been honest. That's not the same thing. Catherine turned and walked away, her perfect posture intact despite everything. After Catherine walked away, the guests around me dispersed quickly, uncomfortable with the raw emotion they'd witnessed. Only Robert remained, watching me with concerned eyes. Are you all right? He asked. I'm fine. That took courage. Or stupidity. I'm not sure which yet. He smiled. Sometimes they're the same thing. Can I get you another drink? Or perhaps something to eat? You look pale. I should probably go. Probably, he agreed. But not yet, not like this. You'll regret leaving in the middle of a scene. Stay for dinner, at least. Let the dust settle. I was about to argue when I saw Catherine on the stage, speaking with the orchestra conductor and someone who looked like an event coordinator. They were having an animated discussion, Catherine gesturing toward the tent, checking her watch. She looked stressed, her perfect hostess demeanor fraying at the edges. Dinner is about to be served, Robert observed. Catherine won't make a scene during the meal. She'll focus on her speeches and her program. You'll have time to think. He was right. Running away now would feel like defeat. Like Catherine had succeeded in making me so uncomfortable, I had no choice but to leave. All right, I said. I'll stay for dinner. Robert guided me to the seating area. Tables were set with elaborate centerpieces, multiple wine glasses at each place setting, name cards in elegant calligraphy. I found my name at a table near the back, far from the stage. The people around me were donors I hadn't met, couples who probably bought their seats at the minimum required contribution. Catherine had seated me exactly where I'd be least visible. I sat down. Robert's table was up front near the stage. He waved at me before taking his seat, a gesture of solidarity that made me feel less alone. The other guests at my table introduced themselves politely. The Johnsons, the Martinellis, the Wongs. They asked the usual questions. How did I know Catherine? What did I do? Where did I live? I answered honestly, watching their expressions shift as they realized I was the sister who'd been causing a scene earlier. Dinner was served in courses. Each plate was a work of art, tiny portions arranged beautifully. The conversation at my table was stilted. Everyone was aware of the drama, uncertain how to address it, so they talked about safe topics. The weather, recent vacations, a new restaurant downtown. I ate mechanically, not tasting anything. Between courses, Catherine stood at the microphone. She'd recovered her composure completely. Her voice was warm, confident, practiced. Thank you all for being here tonight, she said. Your generosity continues to make a difference in the lives of countless young people. Tonight, we've already raised over $200,000, and the evening isn't over yet. Applause. She smiled, waited for it to die down. The Autumn Foundation was born from a simple belief that every child deserves opportunity, regardless of their circumstances. That where you come from doesn't determine where you can go. That with the right support, any child can succeed. I watched her speak these words with such conviction. Did she believe them? Or were they just part of the performance? Words that sounded good to wealthy donors? Many of you know that I grew up with very little, she continued. I sat forward. She was actually going to talk about our childhood? My family didn't have money for extras. Education was my way out, my path to something better. And now, through this foundation, I'm helping other children find their own paths. She paused for effect. Tonight, I want to introduce you to someone who reminds me of why this work matters. My sister Diana is here. Every head in the room turned toward me. The spotlight found me at my table in the back. I froze. Diana is a teacher, Catherine said. She works every day with the kind of children our foundation supports. She could have done anything with her life, but she chose to serve, to give back, to make a difference in the most direct way possible. Please join me in recognizing her dedication. The room applauded. Everyone was looking at me, smiling, clapping. I sat there, stunned, unable to move. Catherine had just turned my presence into part of her narrative. The oddly dressed sister wasn't an embarrassment anymore. She was evidence of Catherine's humble roots, proof that she understood struggle and sacrifice. She was using me? Robert caught my eye from his table. He looked impressed despite himself. Catherine was good at this, spinning everything to her advantage, turning a potential disaster into a moment of authenticity. The applause died down. Catherine continued her speech, talking about programs and success stories and future goals. But I barely heard her. I was processing what had just happened. She hadn't apologized. She hadn't acknowledged our confrontation or her behavior. Instead, she'd simply reframed everything, made my presence at her event into proof of her character rather than evidence of her shame. It was brilliant, in a manipulative way. Dessert was served. More speeches followed. A presentation of grant recipients, young people who thanked Catherine and Richard for their support. They were sincere, grateful. The foundation was clearly doing real work, helping real people, which made Catherine's earlier behavior even more complicated. She wasn't a monster. She was doing genuine good in the world. But she was also someone who couldn't fully embrace her own history, who needed to control the narrative, who measured people by their utility to her image. After dessert, the orchestra began playing again. Couples moved to the dance floor. The formalities were over. Now it was just a party, Wealthy people enjoying themselves, their charitable duty fulfilled for the evening. I stood up to leave. My table companions said polite goodbyes. I walked toward the exit, ready to finally escape. "Diana." Catherine's voice stopped me. I turned. She stood a few feet away, holding 2 glasses of champagne. She offered me one. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Privately?" I looked at the champagne, at her carefully composed expression, at the stranger who used to be my sister. "Yes," I said. "We can talk." Catherine led me away from the party, past the tents and the lingering guests, down a stone path that curved around the side of the house. We walked in silence, our footsteps echoing differently, hers sharp and precise in heels, mine soft in worn flats. She stopped at a small garden area, hidden from the main event by tall hedges. There was a bench, simple compared to everything else on the property, probably left by the previous owners. She sat down, and after a moment, I sat beside her. We both sipped our champagne. The music from the party drifted over the hedges, muffled and distant. "That was quite a speech," I said finally. "I meant what I said, about your work being important." "Did you? Or was I just a convenient prop for your narrative?" Catherine flinched. "Both things can be true." "They can. But only one of them is honest." She turned to face me. In the dim light from the garden lamps, she looked tired. The careful makeup couldn't quite hide the shadows under her eyes, the tension in her jaw. "I don't know how to do this," she said quietly. "Do what?" "Be both people. The person I am now and the person I was. They don't fit together, Diana. They never have." "So you chose one and erased the other." "I had to. You don't understand what it's like. When I first met Richard's friends, his business associates, I could see them judging me, trying to figure out where I came from, whether I belonged. Every word I said, every choice I made, it all mattered. One wrong move, and I'd be dismissed, categorized, left behind. So you rewrote your history." "I edited it," she corrected. "I kept the parts that made me sympathetic, the scholarship girl who worked hard, and removed the parts that made me uncomfortable, the poverty, the embarrassment, the family." She looked away. "Yes." I drank more champagne. It was good champagne, expensive. It tasted like everything else at this party, perfect and empty. "Do you remember when we were kids?" I said. "And Mom took us to clean the Hendersons' house?" Catherine went very still. "You were maybe 12? I was 10. Mom brought us because she couldn't find a sitter. We sat in their kitchen while she cleaned, and you were so fascinated by everything. The granite counters, the stainless steel appliances, the breakfast nook with the bay window. I remember. You told me that someday you'd have a house like that you'd never clean anyone else's toilets, that you'd be the person other people cleaned for. I was a child. You were honest. You knew exactly what you wanted even then, and you got it. This house, this life, all of it. You achieved everything you set out to achieve. Then why do you say it like it's a bad thing?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. My sister. The girl who braided my hair, who shared secrets in the dark, who cried at our mother's funeral, but left before the reception ended. Because you left pieces of yourself behind to get here, and I'm one of those pieces. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. Real ones this time, not carefully controlled for effect. "I didn't want to leave you behind." "But you did." "I didn't know how to bring you with me. You stayed in our hometown. You became a teacher. You chose a completely different path. How was I supposed to invite me to dinner? Call me once a month? Introduce me to your friends? Basic things, Catherine. Sister things. And have them see the differences between us? Have them ask questions about why you still live in that town, in that apartment, teaching for that salary? Have them pity you or judge me for not helping you more? I never wanted your help, I said firmly. I never wanted your money or your connections. I just wanted you to acknowledge me, to not be ashamed of me. I'm not ashamed of you. You hid me in a corner tonight. You gave me a house tour to keep me away from your guests. You seated me at the back table. You've spent 15 years pretending I don't exist. The tears spilled over. Catherine wiped them away quickly, checking to make sure her makeup wasn't ruined. Even now, even crying, she was managing her appearance. I'm ashamed of myself, she whispered. Not you, never you. I waited. I'm ashamed that I ran so far from where we came from, that I married for money and security instead of love, that I built this entire life on being someone I'm not, that I measure my worth by my bank account and my social standing instead of, her voice broke, instead of the things that actually matter. Like family. Like family. We sat in silence. The party continued without us, beautiful and expensive and hollow. I saw Mom in you tonight, Catherine said. When you walked in wearing those clothes, refusing to pretend, refusing to be anything other than exactly who you are. That's who she was. Honest. Real. Unbothered by what other people thought. She was proud of you, even when you stopped calling as much, even when you missed holidays. She'd see your picture in the society pages and show everyone. That's my daughter, she'd say. Catherine closed her eyes. And I couldn't even stay for her funeral reception. No, you couldn't. Richard had a meeting. There's always a meeting, always an excuse, always something more important than the people who actually love you. Catherine looked at me, mascara smudged, perfect face finally crumbling. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if you can. Do you hate me? I thought about that question. Did I hate her? The sister who abandoned me? Who erased our history? Who built walls between us made of money and shame and fear? No, I said finally. I don't hate you. I'm just sad. Sad for what we lost. Sad for who you could have been if you hadn't been so afraid. Afraid of what? Of not being enough. Of being judged. Of people seeing where you came from and deciding you don't belong in their world. Catherine laughed bitterly. I'm still afraid of that, every single day. That's no way to live. It's the only way I know. We finished our champagne. In the distance, I could hear applause. Someone had won an auction item, or a speech had ended, or something worth celebrating had occurred in that other world beyond the hedges. I should go, I said, standing up. Catherine stood too. Diana, don't apologize or make promises you won't keep. Don't tell me things will be different because we both know they won't. You've built this life and you're not going to change it. Not for me. Not for anyone. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's true. I started walking back toward the path, toward my old car and my small apartment and my simple life that I'd never once been ashamed of. Diana, I stopped but didn't turn around. Thank you for coming tonight, for being honest, for reminding me of... Her voice caught. For reminding me of who I used to be. I looked back at her then, my sister, standing in her perfect garden, in her perfect dress at her perfect party, looking more alone than anyone I'd ever seen. Goodbye, Catherine. Will I see you again? I don't know. That's up to you. I walked away, past the hedges, past the party, past the valet who brought my rattling Honda Civic around, with the same professional courtesy he'd shown arriving. I drove down that winding private road, leaving behind the lights and the music and the life my sister had chosen. When I got home, I changed into comfortable pajamas and made tea. My apartment was quiet, small, filled with the ordinary details of my real life. Student artwork on the refrigerator, books piled on the coffee table, a sweater draped over a chair. Everything exactly where it should be. My phone buzzed, a text from Martha. "How did it go?" I typed back. "I'll tell you everything tomorrow." Another buzz, this time from an unknown number. I opened it. "This is Helen from the party. Robert gave me your number. I'm serious about what I said. You're fascinating. Coffee next week? I'd love to hear about your teaching work. Maybe there are ways the foundation could actually support your students directly, instead of just writing checks to programs. Helen Morrison." I smiled. Then another message came through. This one from Catherine. "I'm sorry for everything. I know you probably don't believe me. I'm not sure I believe myself, but I am sorry." See, I stared at that message for a long time. 3 words that didn't erase 15 years. 3 words that didn't rebuild what had been lost. But 3 words that were perhaps a beginning or an ending. I wasn't sure which yet. I set my phone aside, drank my tea, and looked around my small apartment. My life, my choices, my truth. And for the first time, in 15 years, I didn't feel like the sister who was left behind. I felt like the sister who had stayed true.